Now let's look at a program that uses the while loop to print all numbers from 1 to 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Except we will not just say print 1, print 2, print 3, print 4. We would use a while loop to do that for us, okay, to do all the printing for us. So how will it look like? Okay, as usual, we'll have a counter. So we'll set the counter to 1, set the counter equals 1, right? And then we'll check the condition, right? So while counter is less than 10, less than equal to 10, I'm sorry. While counter is less than equal to 10, print counter. And then counter equals counter plus 1, right? So initially counter is 1. Then we come to this decision. While counter is less than 0, print counter. Okay. Yes, counter is less than equal to 10 because it's 1. We print counter and then we increment counter. So counter now is 2, right? Now becomes 2. And then we go back here again. Okay. So if you had to draw the flow of this code, it would be something like this. This is step 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So it would look something like this. 1, and at 2 you make a decision. If it's true, if it's true, if the condition is true, you go to 3 and you go to 4 and you come back again, come back to 2 again, right? If it's false, you just stop. If it's false, you don't go anywhere. Okay, so let's add that for completeness. So it's false, then you stop. Stop. Okay, now let's look at the while loop in action. Okay, we'll actually type and run the program that prints all numbers between 1 and 10. Okay, so we'll start with the counter variable. Okay, so counter equals 1. Okay, we'll start with the counter. Now while okay, counter is less than or equal to 10, okay, and a colon, right? Print counter, and then you increment counter equals counter plus 1. Okay, so when you run it, it just prints 1 through 10 directly, right? Now one thing to note here is that you do not have to do counter less than equal to 10. You can actually do counter not equal to 10 as well. So while counter is not equal to 10, you do this. When counter is equal to 10, actually not equal to 11, actually, because we want to print 10 as well, right? So we can do this as well. Because counter is 1 and it's incremented every time, you add 1 to the counter every time, right? When it becomes 11, you sort of stop. You don't print 4 and 5 anymore, right? So this program will work as well. Okay? Now, if you want to change this to print 100 numbers instead, all you do simply is just change this to 101, 101, right? And when you run it, it'll print 100 numbers for you, right? Another important thing is, and this is something that even I mess up sometimes, okay? If you forget to change this, if you forget to, I'm sorry, if you forget to add this line 5 right here, if you forget to increment the counter variable, you go into what's called an infinite loop, which is, if you do this right, what you're doing essentially is you are telling Python that while counter is not equal to 101, you print counter, okay? And the initial value of counter was 1, but the catch here is that you never increment counter. You never change this value, right? So counter remains 1. It never changes. It remains 1. And this condition continues to be satisfied, and as a result it will keep on printing and never stop. Okay, and I'll run this code and you'll see that it will stop, it will execute and execute, and until either I kill the program using a control plus C, or Replit IDE sort of, gets a hint that this is what's happening and it stops the code for me. Let's see what happens when I run it. Okay, so run. Okay, and it keeps on printing one. It's still printing one. Okay, it's still printing one. Okay, it never stops until I stop it. Okay, until I stop it. Okay, so you can see this is where I stopped it, right? And it kept printing one. It never changed. You see this bar right here? It kept on printing one. It never changed because I never updated the counter variable, right? So be very careful, okay? Inside a while loop, you must always, almost always at least, increment or decrement or change the counter, okay? Counter equals counter plus one, okay? Now, in some situations, you'll have to change the counter in different ways, okay? So you want to do counter equals counter minus one, or counter equals counter divided by 2, right? So if I said, you know what, print or counter equals, yeah, sure, counter times 2 or divided by 2, right? So depending on the problem that you're trying to solve, you have to change your update your counter variable, okay? And that's how essentially a while loop works.